Boy, it's great to have all the voices singing this morning and all the ones that returned. I know part of it's because Doug's here, the Antioch voice, and appreciate that. Good to have you all here. Hey, we all know we're supposed to evangelize, right? Yes. And the last thing you'd ever want to do is guilt someone into doing so, because that never accomplishes anything, right? But we're just going to talk about why evangelizing and then mostly how to. But when we talk about evangelizing, it's all about motive, right? And we do it not because we have to, because that's commandment keeping, right? And I understand if we love God, we'll keep his commandments. But notice that, if you what? Love him. So there's a heart that compels you to do what Jesus asked, because he's won our hearts over. And if it's not done with the right attitude, one, it won't work, and it really doesn't count to much anyway. So notice the idea of gratitude, because there's this fellow in Mark chapter 5 that had many demons. Remember, it's called Legion, and Jesus cast them out. And there's a lot of begging going on in that chapter. And one of the begging is the man. He comes up to Jesus, they begged him to leave. That's interesting. And he was begging that he might accompany him. Why would he want to follow Jesus? I mean, it's a stupid question, but why? I mean, he got his life back. I mean, he was ripping chains and going around naked. This guy had no life, and with a spoken word, Jesus healed him. Wouldn't he want to go with Jesus? Amen. Now, what's amazing, Jesus said what? But I've got a job for you. What is it? Go home to your people and report to them the great things the Lord has done for you and how he's had mercy. Does he have a story to tell? Yes. Unlike anybody else's, right? He says, I appreciate you want to follow me, but you can do something more important for me. Go home and spread the good news. And so it says, he went away, began to proclaim Decapolis, what great things he's done for him, and everyone was amazed. Now that's the right heart, isn't it? Anything short of that's not going to cut it. And because it's equally true with all of us, we're all lost in sin, whether we realize the gravity of that or not. And God provided the way to save us through Jesus Christ, and we've all tasted of his grace personally. And that gratitude, that gratefulness, and the love for him ought to move all of us to share that message with others, because he asked us to, just like this. Tell a personal story about my mom. And it's funny because it came up, someone mentioned when I was in Florida, yeah, we were in Rocky Springs, Wyoming. And I go, oh, man. And I didn't say anything, but that's where my mom and dad were traveling home to Ohio for Christmas from Seattle. He was based there in Bremerton. And a drunk came across and hit their car and killed their 5-year-old girl, Kathy, my sister, who I look forward to meet sometime. They had to evac them through a train window because a train came by, because they're out in the middle of nowhere, and rushed them to the next town. And my mom was in a coma and almost died. And when she was coming through, she just prayed this prayer: God, thank you for my life. And if you spare my life, because she thought she was going to die, I'll never stop serving you. And that's her story. And when she told it to me, I was in my teens or 20s, like, Mom, you never quit. You just keep on, and you wear yourself to a bone. Why do you keep on serving? And she always says with joy. And that's when she told me that story. And that was years later, decades later. She's never stopped serving. Now, when you have that gift of life given to you, shouldn't it move you to be able to share that with others? Because after all, there's people around us that are lost in sin. And if we understand what eternity's like or hell's like, it would cause us to want to say something. So we're going to look at 3 points. First of all, the principle of evangelism and the God's call for us to do that. Because we know that this commission was given to the 12 specifically, right? And so it's easy for people to dismiss it and say, well, that was to the 12, and I can't go into the whole world. But the principle is given to everyone, and that's what I want us to see. So let me just say this. It's easy to find excuse why you're not called to evangelize or share the gospel with anyone. So it doesn't matter what I say and dismiss one excuse, another one will pop up. You can find one. And if that's what we choose to do, that's what we can do, right? And I'm not saying that to guilt anyone. I'm just saying, yes, you can do it if you want to. And that's going to be Philippians class. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's going to be our last class in Philippians coming up. So he told the disciples, all authority has been given me in heaven. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. Baptize in the name of the Father, in the name of the Holy Spirit, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But notice the second part, teaching them. Who is the them in this case? The newly made disciples. And disciples are followers. They're following to learn. So you teach them what? To observe all that I have commanded you. Who's the you? Apostles. The 12. So everything that you've learned from me in the last 3 years, you teach them how to do it as well. Is part of what they were told to do evangelize? Yeah, I mean, right here he tells them, go out in the whole world. Now, we might not have to go to Africa, China, Philippines, but we can go within our own little world, right? And so the thing is, it's one thing to know what to do. It's another thing to know how to do it. Because what does this text say? You teach them what to do? What does it say? No. Well, you're right, but...
All that I commanded you.
But... Okay, the word how is not in there. Sorry, that's another translation. But you teach them really how to observe. That's the idea. It's one thing to tell them what to do. It's another thing to teach them how to do it. So, husband, love your wives. Okay, how? Wife, submit to your husband. You know, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to show it or explain how to do it. Well, that's what we're going to try to do. Hopefully, one class a month throughout the whole year, just trying to create this culture of evangelism so we're all involved in doing the little things we can do, all right? And so before you say, no, it's not me, we all can do this, right? We look in Mark, of course, we're familiar with that. It's a similar passage, go into the whole world and preach the gospel to all creation. And, of course, the response, whoever believes and baptized will be saved. And then, of course, Luke has a different accounting, but it's basically the same message. He opened their minds, that's the apostles, to understand the scriptures, because they were like, why did you have to die? Because this is after resurrection. They didn't expect the death, burial, and resurrection, but the prophets talked about it, right? So he opened their minds to understand the scriptures, the Old Testament, and he said, it was written, where? In the Old Testament, that the Christ had to suffer and rise again from the dead the third day, and the repentance for the forgiveness of sins would begin, of course, in Jerusalem, but be proclaimed where? All the nations. What is God's will? What is our Christ, his King, our King, his will? His gospel will be spread the whole world. Now, the 12 can't do that anymore because they have left us, right? So who does it fall upon? Those disciples have been taught to do the same. And it begins there in case in Jerusalem, but now it's going to begin in our own family or in our home or our own hometown. So I love this text here, 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Paul's talking about his apostleship, but it's just a beautiful way of putting it. Therefore, we are ambassadors for Christ. What's an ambassador?
A representative.
Okay, what's an ambassador of the United States? Okay, and so they send them, there's ambassador to all the different countries and embassies. And if you're on his good list, you get to go to be the ambassador of Aruba. You get to live in paradise or something like that. But Paul says, and you speak for the President of the United States. You speak at his will and beckon, right? And what you say, you represent him, the full power of it, right? In fact, that's exactly what this word, it means. It's used in the ancient times. I'm on embassy for the emperor. Or in other words, I'm his ambassador. And whatever I say, he's saying it through me. Isn't that what Paul says? Isn't it beautiful? We are ambassadors for Christ as though God were making appeal through us. We beg you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. In other words, obey the gospel, right? And if you understand it's God working in you and through you, and we can be ambassadors for Christ, it's like God's begging someone we're talking to through us. Isn't that a beautiful picture? And you can be part of this process of the gospel, the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ reenacted in someone's life every time we share the gospel and someone responds. Amen. So that's the gospel, the guiding principle. And we also, well, I want to do it. I just don't know how to do it. So we're going to talk about how to reach out to others, okay? And to do that, we have to understand about something about our audience. So we're going to give just some information. Then we'll talk about some how to, okay? But real quickly, what is the purpose of evangelizing? I'm glad I heard it. Just save souls. Now, I'm not pointing a finger at anyone because I've said this in our prayers. We'll hear it in our comments. Are we glad to see the numbers increasing in Dallas Church of Christ? Amen. Is that the goal of evangelism, to increase our numbers? Yes. Souls. Save souls. And there's a difference between increasing number, because you could do things to increase your number like Mariano talked about, entertain, and we could pack the place, right? Oh, we've increased the numbers, but have we saved a soul? Now, if you save souls, will our numbers increase? Yes. But our goal is not to increase the numbers here. Are we okay with that? That's a blessing that comes with saving souls. Are we trying to convert them to this church? Are we trying to convert them to the Bible? We're converting them to Jesus Christ. And when they convert to Jesus Christ, they'll be saved. And will they be part of his church? Yes. And will they be among us? Yes. So all those things happen automatically when we save souls and convert them to Christ. So let's be careful. Like, Lord, help us increase our numbers. How could you change that prayer?
Help us reach those who are lost.
Yeah, help us bring someone to you today, Lord. Help you save a soul. And in that, the secondary prayer will be answered, increase our numbers, right? So let's really be careful about how we speak, because pretty soon our goals can get shifted from what it really is. Like, we just want to increase the numbers. Got to have numbers. No, you don't. You need to save souls, all right? Now, are there a lot of them out there need to be saving? Amen. That's not the problem. They're all over. So the problem therein lies with us and some of their hearts. Is the word still powerful? Yes. It still works. Okay. So just wanted to clear that up. So let's talk about the audience that we're going to deal with. This is not going to be technical, but I'm going to just break it down for you, because that's just how I have to see things in the world, all right? Because we know the gate is wide and the path is wide that leads to destruction. How many people are on it? Many. And then the gate is narrow and the path is narrow that leads to eternal life. And how many are on it? You. Okay, when we talk about all the 7 billion people of the world, most won't listen to anything we have to say. He's already promised that, right? A few will. We're looking for what? The few. But do you know what a few looks like? If a few person walked in like, oh, you're one of the few. I see it on your head. I'm the few. You wouldn't know it. I mean, could he have tats and still be part of the few? Yes. All right? Could it be someone in current drug addiction recovery and be part of the few? Yes. Could he be dressed in a 3-piece suit and just the cat's meow and still be part of the few? Yeah. You don't know what it looks like initially, do you? So we treat everyone as though they are part of the few. Let's break it down, okay? There's 3 main groups, and we could break them down in different ways, but this is my class, so I get to break them down the way I want, all right? First of all, there's an atheist. That's a person that says what? No God. Now, there are a lot of atheists in the world today. It's like 12 to 15% of the population are atheists that just say absolutely no God. In the time of Christ, in BC, before Christ, atheism really didn't exist because everyone believed in some kind of higher power. They believed in multiple gods, all right? And so we would call them what? When you live in, very good, polytheists. They believe in many gods. Now, Are there a lot of polytheists today? Yeah, this Middle Eastern movement, religion coming in, like Buddhism and all those things, they believe in multiple gods, and you kind of appeal to all of them. And is there any evidence for any of that? Say no, because there isn't. None of those gods sent their son to prove that he exists like Jesus did, and that's going to be into evidence class. But there is a large portion of that, and they're lost and confused just like the atheists are. Now, just because you're an atheist, does that mean you're not part of the few?
No.
I don't know. Just because you're an atheist doesn't mean anything. This means you don't believe in a God, right? Now, what's an agnostic, real quickly?
I'm not sure. Leave it knowledge.
They say, I don't know if there's a God. I'm not sure. They're in the atheist group. I put them there, just for your information, all right? Because they're not saying there is a God, so by default, they're saying what? There isn't one. Now, the last one are monotheists. Now, what's a monotheist? It is those people that believe in one and one only God. And there's three main groups of monotheists. But when you're going out in the world, you're going to encounter people in these kind of backgrounds. They're atheists, absolutely no God. Or polytheists, oh, God's in the plants, God's in the trees, and nature's my cathedral. Have you ever heard that? All right, it's my sanctuary. And that's polytheism in a very mystical way. And then you've got monotheists, and it would be, let's break those down. There's three groups. Judaism. Do they believe in Jehovah, Yahweh, the single God? Now, the problem is they didn't believe what God said he was going to do through the prophets, i.e. send his son. But are they monotheists? In fact, they believe in the same God we do, as defined by themselves. So there's a little difference, right? The next group would be Islam. They call him what? Allah. He's the only true and living God. Now, if you were to encounter a Jew and someone's a Muslim, the Islam faith, would you treat them differently when you're sharing the gospel? Yeah. You have to. Yeah. I mean, your approach. I mean, you're not going to treat them different. You can treat them the same, love them both. But your approach, that's the best way. Just like if you had an atheist and a monotheist, he believes in the one true God, because that's the third group. He's a Christian. He thinks there's one God. That's Christianity. Would you approach those people differently? Yes. So the reason I'm doing this is, if we're going to be ambassadors for Christ, we got to understand first who we're talking to. Now, I know we just like the dump truck load. You know what I mean by a dump truck load? Right. When a dump truck comes in, where do you want it, Mr. Hafer? And right there, and they dump the whole 12 yards right there, a big pile, and then I have to move it, right? And I've had that problem, and I imagine some of you have. You have a lot of knowledge, and people ask one thing about the gospel or God, and you just dump load on them all this information and facts and things. And they're swimming in it because they don't know what to do with it, right? So we have to know who we're talking to know how to even approach them. Does that make sense? And Jesus did that. And we'll show that in a second. So out of Christians, let's talk about them. Let's break them down into groups. Because first we have part of a denomination, but they're still lost. You know what I mean by that? I'll pick the easy ones, the low-hanging fruit, like Jehovah's Witness. I mean, most of the denomination world don't even accept them as Christians because they're so far off. Now, it's not to judge the people, it's the doctrines. They don't save. It's a work salvation, and they believe Jesus was a created God, and he's a sub-God. He's not even equal to God. They have a different, So, in the Mormons, Pam, where are you? You would love talking to her about her Mormon experience. For how many years?
At least 40.
Yeah, just amazing. So they have a faith, but they're still lost. Then they're part of Christ's body, but they're inactive. And that's the best way I describe it because of the space there. But they're not living their faith like you were talking about this morning, and they're equally just lost. Maybe they were baptized in Christ initially, but they're not faithfully serving him. Out of the two groups, you know which one the hardest to reach is? The part of Christ's body being inactive. Because they're the Pharisee that, I'm righteous. They're the hardest to reach because they can't see their own inadequacy, their failure. Now, it used to be back in the 50s and 60s, the Lord's Church was the fastest growing body of Christians because we were doing a great job talking about the difference between the Bible, what it says, and denominationalism. And churches were popping up everywhere and Christians in big numbers. But now it's really hard to talk to someone in a denomination and bring them out of that faith because they don't have a love of the truth anymore. And they're kind of set in their ways and they don't want to think, we're all going to heaven anyway, it doesn't matter. It's very hard to deal with them, but it's even harder to deal with someone who's fallen away. Yes, Max.
I was one of those.
Huh?
I was one of those.
Out of a denomination or in the Lord's church, inactive?
I was reborn in Christ. But then I didn't
Yeah.
for a long time.
And this would include a lot of our children that were raised in faith and they're no longer with us. That's a huge population of people. They know, they believe in one God, if they still have that faith. But they surely aren't exercising it, right? Yes.
I have trouble with the Catholics because whatever the Pope says goes.
Yeah.
He's going to talk to God for them. And they've been through all their catechism school and they were baptized when they were born.
Yeah, well, they're a baby, right. No faith, but sprinkled, right.
Anything else, and they're right. And don't try to tell me different.
And see, that'd be the top group, and it's really hard. It's really hard because it becomes a tradition, part of their culture.
They call themselves Christians.
They do. They all call themselves in this. That's why it's under the heading Christianity. They think they're Christians and they're following Christ, but they're following a man. Right.
But then to me, it's really not that hard if you were a Catholic and then you got out of there and now you're a Christian. That shouldn't really be that hard because I've been there. I know what you teach.
I appreciate you saying that. See, if you didn't hear that, if you were a Catholic like she was and you learned the truth, you could be the most dedicated Christian there is because you really appreciate the truth you found.
Yes.
But it's hard to get them, that's all I'm saying, now, in today's day. It was a lot easier in the 50s and 60s, but it's really harder now, all right? And the last one is like I was talking about kids. They were part of Christ's body or just other adults that fall away in their adulthood. And that's really hard to reach them too. Yeah. So we have atheists, no faith at all, right? And then we have polytheist Eastern religion, and they're just everywhere. There's no truth. That's really challenging because they don't believe truth is personal. Whatever your truth is, that's your truth. Yeah. And then we have monotheism, the Jews and the Muslims. I've never met but one Muslim converted, and he had to leave Egypt to get baptized because his dad would have killed him if he found out. And he lives in America now. Toddy is his name. Yes?
Well, I want to mention something about terror group that you have there. I know a family in Chile that for many, many years, and these marriage couple, they have 3 children. The first 2, they got married with unbelievers.
Yeah.
Christian, not people, but unbelievers. And after a while, they just fall away.
Yeah.
Because they were married to unbelievers.
Right.
So the 3rd child that they was still young, but she also got married with a non-believer, and she fell away.
Yeah.
Now, when I visited there the last time that I was there, it was just him, the guy, who was a faithful Christian.
Everybody else was left.
Not even his
Yeah.
wife, not even
Yeah.
his children, not even,
Yeah.
It was really, really, really
Yeah.
sad.
Because if you're not strong in your faith and you marry a non-believer, they're going to pull you away. It happens all the time. There's exceptions, but it happens so often. I should have actually a 4th column, and I didn't have it. It's people that believe in Jesus and God, but they don't even claim to be a Christian. Well, they think they are. And it's because 70% of the surveys say, I believe in God and Jesus. But they're not part of a church at all. But they think that's good enough. I believe. And that'd be the largest group, and maybe that's our target audience. All right? But I'm not going to decide who's going to be open to the gospel or not. God's going to decide that through the preaching of the word, right? Yes, Mary. Yes. That's a very good observation. I'll repeat it. Is that all right? The reason it was growing so fast in the 50s, 60s, the church was having debates with anyone that would debate them. And they would pack the houses. But people were interested in the truth. And when they heard the truth presented versus, say, Jehovah's Witness, people go, wow, they never heard it. And a lot of people were coming to Christ. But now they've learned, don't debate Christians. I mean, people that have the truth. They won't debate. Very, very, very few, because they know they'll lose members. That's true. So, yeah, that's a big reason. Yeah, very good observation. Anything else? So, what are we going to do? Because that's what we're dealing with. There's a process. And this is where we're going to get into the how, okay? I like how Paul uses the analogy of farming to sowing the gospel like a seed. And Jesus used that parable of the sower, went out to sow, and there were 4 types of what? Soil. Hearts. Yeah, soil. Hard ground, rocky ground, thorny, and then good hearts, or good soil. And Paul's using the same thing because they were dividing over their favorite church or preacher in Corinth. I'm a Paul. Well, Peter baptized me, and they're just... And he says, wait a second, it's all about Jesus. It's not about us. So he asks, who am I? Apollos. He was very eloquent, Apollos was. And he says, what is Paul? What are we? He said, we're just what? Servants. And that's the word for Greek for slave. We're the lowest class in society because that's how Paul regarded it. So all we're doing as ambassadors is sharing Jesus Christ, who is the big thing to you. You don't need a relationship with me. You need a relationship with him, right? So how does that happen? Even as the Lord, we're servants through whom you believe, because we shared the message and you believed in Christ. Not in us, but in Christ. As God gave us what? This is so important. You just have to cement this in your mind. How does God give people opportunities to share the gospel? First, it's by prayer. And I've talked about that so much. And there's so many people that have come into Dallas. Pam's another one. It was by prayer, just by prayer. She was praying, we were praying, and you've heard the story. It starts with prayer. And then God will put someone in your path, but you got to be just excited about, passionate about sharing Christ with them, because that's when the opportunity, you have the ability, here's the opportunity, and then you respond to it. That's how it happened. So he said, I planted the seed. Paul comes along and waters it, and maybe actually gets them to the point they are baptized or helps them grow as Christians. But who causes the growth? It's very important. Can you save anyone? Say no. Who's the only one that can do the saving? Jesus Christ, God through Jesus, right? But we're just doing the process by which they come to God and be saved, right? And it's always by the teaching the word. If the word is not taught, no one can ever be saved because they can't know about God. They can't know what they've never heard. And they can't hear unless there's a speaker. And they can't speak unless someone is sent. That's Romans 10, right? So, neither the one who plants or the one waters anything, but God who causes the growth. Now, he who plants and he who waters are one. We're all in this together. We need everyone doing their part. We have waterers and we have planters and we're going to have weeders. Weeders in a garden is important, right? Because you're watering and the weeds go, thank you, you're watering me. And you got to what? Pull the weeds out. And then when you have to have stakers, because when you have a plant and it wants to fall over, what do you put by it? A stake to hold them up so they're strong enough to stand on their own. And some of you need to stand by young babes in Christ so they don't fall. And you're part of this gospel plan. We need everyone doing their part, whatever it is. He said, we're nothing. God caused the growth, but we're all doing our little part because without it, no growth would ever happen. Does that make sense? Yes.
I think sometimes we get discouraged there.
Yes.
Because you can plant something and you may never know it.
That's right. It might prop up years later in another town or country.
Let me give you a good example. There was a gentleman years ago that he became a Christian.
Yeah.
And he told us the story the first time he ever heard the word Church of Christ. He lived in California, and he was a businessman, and he was attending the company up in Beaverton conference room, and he overheard one of the men mention the Church of Christ.
Yes.
Okay? Well, years later, probably 10, 15 years later, he was in a hang gliding club with some of the members from the Milpitas Church of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And they started teaching him the gospel. He was Catholic.
Oh.
And I'm going to tell you, he lost his wife, he lost his kids.
When he became a Christian. Wow.
He became a Christian. And so that person in that conference room planted the seed.
But he never knew it.
He never knew.
Wow. But he will know.
So we can't get discouraged because
Right.
we don't see the growth.
I really appreciate that. But here's when you'll find out. Now, he who plants and he who waters, we're all what? We're in this together. But each will receive his own reward according to his own labor, his work. That's when you'll find out, like, wow, you mean you came to Christ because I said that in a conference room? Yeah, the reward's coming. Yes.
I like the way that Jesus uses that example, or Paul, in going out into the field during harvest. What does the individual going out to do the work have to do? He has to be prepared. You don't,
Right.
You don't go out for a day's work unless you're ready
Right.
for the work. You've clothed yourself properly. You know what's involved in that process.
Well, that's why we're doing this. We're preparing.
Yeah, you have to
Right.
prepare. And as an evangelist, as you know, and I'm sure Mariano, you've got to equip the workers so they can go into the field.
Very good. That's our job, is to equip, prepare people. So let's look how that's going to look, all right? I just want to introduce this concept to you because we're going to do what Jesus did. And Jesus loved to ask questions. Because I hear this question, how do I start? How do I introduce Jesus? How do I bring up the subject of the church or salvation? That's a big question, right? Well, Jesus is going to answer that for us. You do it by asking questions. So I'm just giving you 4 or 3 here. This is the man we talked about last week. He was in the pool, Bethsaida, and he says, he couldn't get in the water fast enough. Remember that account? So Jesus saw him lying there, and he knew he'd already been there a long time, the condition. He said to him, do you wish to get well? At one end, I just have to laugh at that question. Well, of course, but is it a hook? Yeah, and then he tells him, I tried to, but there I can. They beat me to it because I can't walk. And poor guy. But what did he ask? Do you just want to get well? And it immediately has the guy, his attention. Okay, another one. So this is in John 6, in the feeding of 5,000. And this is for the 12. Or the disciples that are following. Jesus lifted up his eyes, seeing a large crowd was coming to him, and he said to Philip, where are we going to buy bread for all these people to eat? And remember what Philip says? He says, Lord, we don't have much money, much less a supermarket to buy it. We can't feed them. But why is Jesus asking that question? It tells us. It's a test. And he elicited a response from Philip and the rest, and then when Jesus does the miracle, they go, whoa. And they have to rethink everything, don't they? All right? Here's another one. We talked about the blind man. And this guy went through the ringers because did he expect to have his blindness healed? No, Jesus spits on the ground, makes the mud, puts his eyes, go wash in the pool of Siloam. He comes back and the people go, aren't you the guy that was blind and begged for? Yeah, that's me. And they said, no, it can't be him. It looks just someone that looks like him. And they go, well, how did it happen? He said, I don't know. This guy just told me to go wash, and I washed to come back seeing. Well, where is he? I don't know. So they drag his parents in, right? Then they drag him back again, the Pharisees. And he said, we know. He goes, tells them, I know this guy can't. He has to be of God because no man can do these kind of things. And they said, you're teaching us? You're born in sin? Because they thought he was blind because he was a sinner. So Jesus appears to him finally again at the end of the chapter, and that's where we are. Jesus heard they'd put him out of the synagogue. He has nothing to do with them anymore. And finally he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? And he comes back and says, well, who is the Son of Man that I can believe in him? Does he want to believe?
Yes.
But he has to find out who it was. And Jesus said, it's me. You think that was an easy sell for him? Yeah, why believe then? But do you want to believe in the Son of Man? Okay. This is the last one, Mark 10. A lot of people came begging Jesus, right? And sometimes the disciples try to get rid of him, like you're bothering Jesus, nuisance. But he comes up to Jesus, to this man who's begging, and he says, "What do you want me to do for you?" Isn't that an open invitation? And if you knew Jesus was the Son of God and the creator of everything, he said, "Jack, what do you want me to do for you?" Like, whoa, let me go through my list. And it has to be something on the top. Isn't that a great leading question? Now, I didn't count them all. So I looked in, AI is really good in your Google searches now. It'll search everything for you. But people that have done this work, and I didn't count them all, say there's 305 or 307 different places in the New Testament that Jesus asks a question. And I got a list of 150 of them right here in all the text. He's asked every kind of question imaginable. Like, do you believe and do you have faith? And different things he's asking. But why is Jesus asking questions?
To get a response
Yes.
and to find out where they're at.
Find out where they're at.
He was fishing.
He's fishing. He's plowing the soil because you can't plant seed in hard pan. You got to plow the soil. And he's trying to find out ones that have good hearts, good soil. And you find that out by asking what? Questions. And this has been so hard for me to learn because I was excited when I first came out of all my study I was preaching. And I got to talk really fast because I got to bring you to Christ. And I'd tell you everything you wanted to know and then what you didn't even want to know. And you're going to listen because I'm preaching, right? And then, so it's slow down. You got to just ask questions and be an active listener. Because otherwise, people think you're being preached at or you're being solicited or you're being sold something. They want to know first that you care about them. And when you ask questions, you're showing that I care about you. I'm interested in you. So who had their hand up? Max or Mary? Piques their interest, yeah.
Well, this guy's interested in me and open the conversation.
And that it shows that you're interested in the person, is what she said. Very good. Bob?
You know, I like that question because it brings me back to JFK when he made his speech, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Right.
This basically says the same thing before he said that. Ask not what I can do for you because I've already done it for you when I went upon that cross and died.
Right. And that's very similar.
Yes.
It's very similar. But you were even talking to me earlier, like, how do I do this? How do I get someone to see this? And the best way I'm going to say, start asking them questions. Remember the disciples on the boat? And Jesus said, why are you afraid? Because the storm's killing us. We're sinking. Why are you afraid? Why does doubt arrive in your heart? I mean, he's asking questions that challenge us all the time. But it shows that he cares too.
You know, it's what I'm saying is when I see that, you know,
Yeah.
it's not asking what he can do for me because he's already done it.
But that's fine. But that's true as Christians. But we're talking about getting someone into Christ. And we can ask, what could Christ do for you? That's the question. What do you need to be done for you by God? That's a fair question. You know, it is. Yes.
When I go to try to sell somebody, I'm supposed to ask the question and I'm supposed to listen.
Listen. Yeah. That's very good. So let's look at that. Oh, yes.
Jesus would ask the question, already knowing the answer. It was a heart check on the individual as well. So when he asked the question, he knew where their heart was at already.
Yeah.
But it was to see the legitimacy of how their response was.
Yeah.
And if they were ready to receive that gift.
That's true. But sometimes he's calling people out. Like, remember the woman that had the hemorrhaging and she touched Jesus? What did Jesus say to the whole crowd? Who touched me? And she goes, uh-oh. Because she knew it was her. Could she hide anymore? No. How about Simon, are you still sleeping? What was he supposed to be doing? Watching and praying. There's just so many questions that you can teach so much by questions more than you ever can by dump truck loading.
Do you love me?
All right. And then when they ask the question, they answer, you say, well, what do you mean by that? And you investigate. You be an active listener. So let's talk about some of these things. So you two girls, and Elijah, you need to get your pen out and your pencil, right? Do you have a pen and pencil? This is the test. Everybody else, get your pens out too. You can write it on the back of your hand. I don't care. We have to learn to ask and listen. And it's all going to start with prayer. So what are some questions I can ask an atheist? You don't have to write this down, but...
What do you believe in?
Okay, if you're talking to an atheist, oh, you're an atheist, and then what would you ask?
What do you believe in then? I would say, why don't they?
Okay, you could ask that. What else?
I would say, why don't you?
Yeah, why don't you believe in a God? You're trying to seek to understand. Mm-hmm. What else might you ask an atheist?
Who do you think made the trees?
Yeah, and they might go into Big Bang and all that. How about you ask, if there is no life after death and we're just here as biological beings, what do you think the purpose of life is? Because true atheists have no purpose and meaning to life. And then they say, well, there isn't one. You go, isn't that kind of sad? You might just ask that. Do you ever feel sad about knowing there's no... And they might not have ever had anyone ask them that question. And they go, yeah, maybe that's why I am sad. Yes?
I deal with a lot of atheists where I work, and it's pretty popular to be an atheist right now, at least in the people I'm dealing with. And one of the things they say when I ask to be a good person, to be a good person. So my follow-up question is, according to who?
And that's a good answer. Another question, well, what do you mean? What is a good person? What defines a good person?
Well, a person that's, kind to others and a decent human being.
And then you say, well, you believe in evolution, don't you? Oh, yeah. So when a lion just eats a little baby Bambi cub or something like that and devours it and feeds it to its offspring, is that cruel? Oh, no, that's survival. And don't you believe just survival of the fittest? Where does good come from or bad?
Exactly. That's why
Yeah.
the argument never holds up, because it always gets back to being good. And I'm like, yeah, but good according
There's no definition for it, right? So if you have some questions prepared because you've done that enough, you can just start, you have a good point. I don't know what is good.
I haven't heard that response yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep fishing. Keep plowing. All right? What might you say to one that's left the faith as a youth? You know what the first question I think I'd ask? Yeah. But go ahead.
Why did you leave?
Why'd you leave? And just let them tell the story. Maybe they were hurt. Someone let them down. Maybe they saw hypocrisy in the church. You're going to hear. And sometimes it's just that cleansing, purging all that junk out of them will open them up to man, what if you found a group of Christians that actually follow Christ? Would that interest you? Another question, right? Yeah. I don't know, Ann. Well, go ahead.
Well, yeah, why did you leave? And a lot of times I just want to go have fun.
Yeah, it could be.
I love being seduced by the world.
Yeah. I don't think they would say that. I know, but we don't want a dump truck on them. Well, no, but you're right. There's lots of reasons. It's asking the right questions, and it's just hard. This is a skill we're going to learn, okay? Marvin.
Well, one thing I like when somebody said they left the faith and asked you, well, you know the truth, so what changed the truth?
Yeah. Did something about the truth change? Yeah, that's a good question. Put it in a question. Did something about God and Jesus change? Yeah. So we could ask those things, but your neighbor's a good one. But I got to wrap this up because we're just trying to reach out to people. And didn't Jesus come to seek and to save? Yeah. And I think of Peter sinking in the water, right? He had lots of faith, but he's going down. And Jesus reaches up and saves him once again. That's all we're doing. And if someone was in a pond and you could save them, would you let them drown or would you do everything to go out there and grab them and save them? We have to see that spiritually. Everyone's drowning in sin. They are. Mm-hmm. So this is reality. So here's your job, okay? Evie. Evie. Emma too. Shia, where's your pen? Oh, are you going to write on your hand? Everybody else do this too. I need you to write down the names of people that you want to talk to. Because notice what Paul says. And Paul writes, where is he when he writes this? In prison. With all prayer and petition, pray at all times in spirit. With this view, be on alert with all perseverance and petition for all the saints. And pray on my behalf. Paul said, this is his personal prayer request. That utterance may be given to me in the open of my mouth to make known with boldness the mystery of the gospel. For I'm an ambassador. In that word, we're going back to it. I'm an ambassador for Christ. But I'm in chains. But it doesn't matter. I just want opportunity. And I need you to pray for me that it'll happen. And God will send me someone. And I'll be bold in talking. That I might proclaim it and speak boldly as I ought to speak. First of all, make this your prayer. All of us. Lord, send me someone. Because I want to be ambassador for you. You got to mean the prayer. And help me speak it clearly and boldly when my opportunity comes. Yes, that's right. As I ought to speak. So, here's the thing. 3 names of someone you want to talk to about Christ. And I don't know who they are. It doesn't matter. And it's personal to you. 3 names. Could be a family member, a work member, someone at school. I don't care. And then pray about those 3 names every day for a week or longer. Lord, give me an opportunity to talk to them and help me know what to say. Now, do you think God will answer that prayer? Maybe not all 3, because some will, most won't, right? But if 1 out of 3 does, and you get an opportunity, wouldn't that be exciting? I say, well, I don't know what to do if they say that, yeah, they want to have a study. Well, then that's when you talk to Mariana and I, right? We're all in this together. But everyone's going to do their part. Yes?
I had a friend that was coming to church here, and he got a job, and then he quit coming. And I always poke at him, but it's funny how you say you need to just ask the question, because I've never just plain out asked him, why did you stop coming?
Yeah.
I just never, he goes to counseling, and the other day he was like, I'm going to counseling, and my poke was, church is free. Like, why are you paying for it?
Yeah, the Lord is free. Yeah.
I've just never asked him the plain question of, why did you stop coming?
Did you hear all that? He never asked the guy why. It was Peter, right? Yeah. Why do you know why we don't? Because we feel like we don't have permission to ask a personal thing. And I have found you can ask anything personal, because if they know you care and you're not trying to attack them. And they go, wow, finally somebody asked me. And they want to tell, why they're sick, why they're not coming, or whatever, why they lost their job. But you have to have some kind of relationship to do that. You can't just do it to a stranger. But I know, Shia, 3 people. You can say, hey, why don't you come to a Bible class with me? Because I have the best Bible teacher in the world. Yeah, that's the question too. So pray daily for them, and then think of questions to ask. And you go online. I have another page. It's the Institute for, Evangelism is called. It's Learning to Develop Questions. So this is not something new. A lot of people talk about it, but it just asks questions. Now, I don't see, oh yeah, there you are, Will. I got a class with Aaron and Monica next Friday. You know how I got it? I asked them, hey, would you like to have a class? Yeah, I would like that. I'm like, okay, good. Then my next question was, when? And because you don't, oh, good, he said I'll have a class, and you leave. Like, no, then you ask when. And so it's Friday at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock. I said I will call him and we'll confirm it when he checks his calendar. It's just that easy. Yes?
I was going to say the win-win with that is we get to watch Brent.
It's a win-win. Now, I imagine you've been praying for the 2 of them, haven't you? So it didn't just happen they were here today. It just didn't happen they said yes. It's because prayer, God, we're ambassadors for God. He's already got things in the works. He just needs someone to go out and do it. He's got it already set up. He just needs someone to go out there and talk. And that can be all of us. Yes?
And at what point do you, because but, at what point do you shake the dust?
Well, that's a good question. When do you shake your dust off your feet and move on? And that's probably the quickest answer to that is when they stop answering questions, they have no interest. Then you just move on. But as long as they're asking questions, answering your questions, and having an interest, you can keep talking. So how many girls are you going to on your list? You got some people already thinking about? Awesome. Pray for them every day, right? And then Mario will teach them. Okay, any other comments or thoughts? Yes.
I think it's important to understand each individual is different.
Yes.
And so they may require more than another individual.
Oh, yes. That's why it takes all of us.
Yeah, because some may take 6 months.
It might take the right temperament to talk to them, too.
Yes.
And that's why, yes, this is a process that takes everyone to be involved. And then when they do come, everyone needs to love on them. You know, like, wow, that's the most loving group in the world. But don't dump truck, all your information, because we have lots of information as members of the church, right? And the last thing you'd ever do is lead with things like instrumental music and all that. You don't even lead with the Lord's Supper, because we're trying to save what? Their soul, right? They'll learn the rest of that later. Sometimes we got it all backwards, We're trying to convert them to this church the way we do things. No, we're trying to convert them to Christ. Yes?
I was going to say, every conversion in the book of Acts talks about Jesus, the Son of God, came, lived here, died for us, and rose.
Absolutely.
That's all they
Yeah.
need to know.
Someone else.
I say, they don't need to know how much we know until they know how much we care.
Oh, I've heard that one before. That's well said. Yeah. All right, so we're done there. Let's sing.